So make sure you keep your mic super close.
Super close.
Don't put it in your mouth.
Okay.
Just like,
Just bite on it.
yeah. If your tongue isn't rubbing against the pop filter,
You're doing it wrong.
You're doing it wrong.
Butterscotch.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 72 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast, Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth, and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, and I'm the internet net catcher.
I'm Sam McArt.
I'm sure I'm the game mechanic.
Yeah. And today is November 7, 2016, one day before Election Day, which we'll talk about very briefly. And also warning, anything that happened on this show, there's going to be profanity and stuff. So if you're a child, then stop listening right now.
Unless your name is Max, in which case, shout out to Max.
Yeah, Max is cool.
Way to go, Max.
Max is a cute kid.
All right, let's talk about the election in the United States that's happening tomorrow, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
So we're not going to take any political stances here, except just don't be an idiot.
Yep.
Which is, it's a good thing to do.
Also, do vote, but I guess this is coming out the day after the election.
Yes.
So
Do
I-
have voted.
I hope you didn't do an idiot, and I hope you voted.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll see now whether or not the country is going to be in shambles on Wednesday. So who knows? I mean, we may not even be alive at the
This
time
may
this
be our
podcast
last
airs.
podcast.
Whoa.
This is a time capsule we were planned.
Yeah, you get to hear our last few words. So I don't know. We'll see. Whatever. We'll have more to say about this next week, assuming we're still around. But also, this past weekend, we did the Scatter Jam.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
So, Scatter Jam is a St. Louis game jam format in which people assemble on Friday night, get a theme, and then scatter to the four winds with their teams, and then come back on Sunday night.
Feels like Thursday.
It feels like Thursday, but 2 days later, on Sunday night, to demo their games and show them off. So it's called the Scatter Jam, and we've been doing it in St. Louis for a year and a half.
3 years.
3 years?
This is the third, 2 years. I guess
Wow.
this is the third
2 years.
Scatter Jam. So
Yeah, so it was at the zoo this year, as it was last year, which is very cool because they got a big auditorium and they got big cement animal heads on the walls, which is crazy cool looking.
And also real animal heads, which is really weird for a zoo.
That's true.
yeah, and it was
Someone
also
should talk
this is
to
also
them.
one of the first game jams where I had to look inside the mouth of a leatherback turtle before I got to I got to make a game, which
Which is one of the grosser things in the animal kingdom. As it turns
amazing.
out.
Yeah, we also learned the similarities between plastic bags and jellyfish.
Yeah.
they look the same, they taste the same, but one of them's harder to digest.
Can you
It's
guess
the bag.
which?
It's the bag.
Oh.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, so we got the theme on Friday night, and then everybody headed back here to BSHQ to jam. And I think
Big
everybody
shack.
well,
with
so
the jam?
it was awesome. Sam and I teamed up to make a game called Betty the Yetis, which is like a Yeti.
Yeah. We wanted to go with just regular Betty the Yeti, but that was already a kid's book or something.
Somebody made an eco fable.
An eco fable. That's right. So we had to be careful not to step on any trademark toes.
Yeah, so we made Betty the Yeti's yachting adventure
Extreme Investment Banking Edition.
Extreme Investment Banking Edition.
You can actually go play it on itch.io. So if you go to bscotch.itch.io, it's right there. You can also just watch the 2-minute trailer to get the idea because it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, and I will say that. So the fun part about making I guess to summarize it, you are a Yeti. You were in a boat, and global warming started happening, and so the sea level started rising. And in order to escape, you have to go up to the top of Mount Everest in your boat. So you are rowing up the snow. So it's kind of like backwards skiing. Like you use your paddle to push yourself up the mountain. And then if you don't keep paddling, then you slow down and you start sliding back. So you have to dodge rocks and trees and stuff. But also, there's a lot of coins and money scattered about on the face of Mount Everest, dropped by all the Yeti bankers.
Very well.
Which, so you can pick, they're just throwing money everywhere. And it's also the case that the Yeti economy is built on respect.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, though, Yetis only respect sweet flips. That's like the core of their culture. And so the bankers on the mountain will only pay you interest on your savings if you have done a series of badass flips on the way up to the bank. So it's a game about climbing Mount Everest, doing flips, and saving for your retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And then the most fun part, though, was we finished that part on Saturday night, and we were like, what do we do now? Because we have an entire extra, like, half a day to add stuff to the game. And so Sam and I were like, what if you got to the top of Mount Everest and then you kept going? Yeah. And so we're like, yeah, so the sea level now keeps rising and you have to now boat to the International Space Station. So we put a little, you'll see it in the YouTube video. We put a little cutscene in there where Betty evolves into Space Betty and her boat becomes like a little UFO spaceship and she has a little helmet on and then her feet also have little like helmets. So you boat up to the International Space Station. Yeah. And of course the sea level keeps rising all the way up to 249 miles above the Earth's surface.
Just below the International Space Station.
There's a lot of water in those ice caps, you know?
Yeah.
Like a lot more than everybody thought.
Yeah. But yeah, it turned out to be a super ridiculous and fun game. So yeah, check it out. What is it?
Bscotch.itch.io.
Bscotch.itch.io. So what about you guys?
Yeah, what'd you make? What'd you work on?
I just worked on some random stuff. So I mostly wanted to work on the tool that I've been making for Sam and Seth to make games faster. And now Sure, which is the ink tube, which takes art assets and then puts them into the games and stuff. So I was kind of working on that a bit. And then I was just kind of fiddling around because I need to know more about the kinds of problems that Seth faces making games so that every once in a while I could be like, hey, maybe I can make this work a little better, you know? So I just dove in, did it, and wanted to just do kind of a weird thing. And so I was making this little character who you could talk to and you could tell it to do things. So it would kind of parse out the words and try to find the action words and the targets. And
it was funny
so
to watch. You actually had to type commands, like a platformer, like a 2D platformer. You had to type commands to this character. So you'd be like, walk.
And he'll just start walking.
Be like, walk left. And turn around and start walking the other way.
But he has
go faster.
He has I think a 1 in 20 probability of just disobeying you. And he'll just go, nah. He'll just go, nah. And then just not do whatever you asked. And so, I was just kind of playing around with this thing just to re-experience game programming, because game programming is real weird.
Yeah.
Like real weird. And the first problem that I faced, and I made a game a long time ago, but ever since then, I've basically just been doing infrastructure work for the studio. And so I haven't had to think about it for a long time. But the first problem,
you make gerblins.
Yeah. So the first problem I faced in this context was, how do I make the character just stand on something? And I'd forgotten how difficult of a question that is to answer in the context of games. Like, you would think it's the most basic part of basically every game in the universe is you have a character and it stands on a thing, right? It stands on the ground and walks around or whatever. And turns out,
what is ground?
What is the ground and how do you stand on it? Right? And
it's not something you normally need to think too hard about.
Yeah. And so it was just kind of a fun, interesting, very weird project. But mostly I was just amused because I kept on running into unexpected stuff that would cause the character's arms just to windmill infinitely fast. And, that kind of
Adam's like, go left. The character's like, I'm a helicopter.
And then he waved its arms around like crazy, and then it just disappeared.
Yeah. And
I'm out.
I'm out of here.
And for a while, it interpreted every single command as an attack command for some reason. Anyway, it was very interesting.
Yeah, we started joking that Adam was going to accidentally build Skynet, basically. It was what appeared to be happening.
It was evil for a while.
Yeah, the character kept becoming more disobedient and more sinister as the weekend progressed.
Turns out that the 1 in 20th chances keep creeping up.
Yeah,
something's happening.
A little
character's
more
like, I'm
frequent
going to
than
make
you would
this 1 in 10, 1 in 5.
I think my favorite thing about it, though, is that so Seth and I are using the ink pump tool that Adam's been building, which moves assets from Inkscape into a folder and then imports them from that folder into GameMaker.
Mm-hmm.
And Adam built it, to spec, but it turns out that the real world is very messy and heavy. And so
those of you who don't make software for a living, but do like to program, just know there's a big difference between just programming and making software for a living.
So
it's an enormous gulf.
It basically amounts to compiling your art assets at the end of the day. And so I would finish my stuff, hit a button, and then the ink pump would run and theoretically output all the assets into a folder, which then Seth could pull in using another tool. But turned out it was a very big stress test for Adam's creation. And so lots of bugs flying around and lots of like, wait, how does this work again? And like, oh, this should do this instead. And then a lot of times just being like, why didn't that go?
And having literally no idea.
Yeah.
But to Adam's credit, throughout the weekend, he was just like, as opposed to being like, fuck, this thing I spent so much time in is just collapsing under the weight of the real world.
Yeah. It was just informative. So I've been redoing it. Now it has parallel processing.
Which you can help a lot because it's taking about 9 minutes
so
to
they go a
crank
lot
through my
faster
art.
now.
And I was like, what if it used the GPU?
And Adam's like,
Yeah, but no, not yet.
That's V2.
Yeah.
We'll figure that out. Yeah.
And then sure, what about you? What was let's talk about your game.
Yeah, so I actually collaborated with Carol, and then we made a hybrid of a breakout and kind of a satire to dream interpretation therapist.
Yeah.
So for those of you who don't know, the Scatter Gems theme this year is open to interpretation. So me and Carol were just discussing, what can we make out of this? And then eventually we settled on the idea that let's do dream interpretation. So we have this. A dream interpretation session going between the clinician and then the client, and then you play as the clinician to use the breakout mechanics to select the phrase that you want to tell your client, and
so you would hit. You'd bounce the ball and the blocks would have responses.
Right.
You'd hit the response and then the therapist would be like, yeah.
Yeah. Tell me more.
Tell me more about that.
does this have to do with your mother?
Yeah. Is this a common occurrence?
Right. And then it turns out the more you hit, the better they will rate you, despite what you actually said. So being a good listener really goes a long way.
So it's a pretending to listen to someone simulator.
Right. Which is actually very true in real life. Sometimes, you're just listening. You're pretending to listen to people.
You just go,
Yeah.
Or in your mind, you're just playing breakout.
But I think Carol has it up on her itch page. So if you go to carolmertz.itch.io, probably
I think so.
That's a fair guess. Then you can find that game there, and you'll also get to hear Carol making weird noises in the thing because she at one point locked herself in the podcast room and we could just all hear through the wall.
Yeah, she made a bunch of mumbling noises
Weird
and then
noises.
passed it through a filter, and then it turned into this weird sort of pseudo babbling between the patient and the therapist, which turned out pretty funny.
Yeah.
So
Scope it out.
yeah, so check all that stuff out.
And then Andy and one of our friends here,
Michael.
in St. Louis, Michael Ha, also made a game together. We're all in the same room, and you can find theirs. We won't talk about it since they're not here, but it is very cool, and the art is awesome.
It's called Gum Control.
Gum Control.
Gum Control. And I think, where did it? Maybe on Michael's itch page.
You can get it if you look at the
I don't know.
Scatter Jam on
True.
itch.io. But,
Yeah.
So and that was kind of cool to see too, because Andy, he has been working with Adam and learning a lot of web dev stuff, and he actually hasn't done any game dev.
Yeah.
So even Game Maker and the tools he was using and stuff were completely unfamiliar. So it's always cool to see somebody just get thrown into it like that. And it's just like, well, I got to figure it out because I'm here for 48 hours. So, yeah, and he did. He rose to the occasion, which is cool. All right. So what else happened this past week?
I think that's about it. We should just get to questions.
All right, let's get to some questions.
Is that all? There was nothing else that
I
happened?
mean,
there
there was all
was,
kinds
but-
of stuff, but we're in a time warp because we just spent 48 hours making it.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to throw my mind back to ask what did happen. Ooh, I got new toilets.
Hey.
So this thing-
Hey.
this is going to change my life, so I just had to talk about it. That's it.
Let's talk about it. What have you learned about?
I did
toilets?
learn though, because I had to do a lot of toilet research.
Okay, what you got? Save me some time later in life.
There's a sort of startling. There's both a startling diversity and a startling uniformity of toilet options because they're all basically exactly the
toilet.
fucking same.
Yeah.
Except there are.
Is there ever like a you know how we go to Amazon page and there's a bunch of questions and stuff where people ask, right? It's like on a toilet, it's like questions like, "Can I shit in it?" Yeah.
Well, it
All right,
really
well, I
is
guess this
though.
fine.
That is the main question. Is just does it get blocked up and does it clean the bowl? Like those are the only two things you even care about. And but there's some weirdly ornate kinds of toilet designs and stuff, and these weird ones that just look kind of like a pod. You know, it doesn't look like you would think of as a toilet. You kind of lift the surface of it open, and then I don't know, a lot of
like
very
an
weird
egg.
stuff. Yeah, it's like an egg.
Does it close your entire body inside, or
You fold in
I didn't
half.
see one of those. I mean, it was hard to get a sense of scale because they just show a white pod against a white background. So I don't know. Might have been a full. Might be just you getting
is
your
it,
whole
is it
body
like
in
one
there.
of those egg chairs from the Men in Black
Yeah, basically.
test scene?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
know what I'm
Turns
talking
out
about.
that's a commercial for the new toilet.
Yeah.
They look super comfy. So
Yeah, it looked pretty nice.
I mean, I had a toilet talk of my own last week that finally finished, which is that the flapper stopped. So the flapper on a toilet is the thing that stops the water from draining out during the flushing phase.
Ah, the flapper.
You know? And so
Yes.
my flapper was weak, and so it wasn't creating a good seal.
Are you talking about your mouth this time or the toilet?
and so the
You got a weak flapper.
this weak flapper that I had was causing a persistent, constant leak. And so you can just hear the toilet. If you ever hear a toilet just going, kind of trickling back, just constantly.
That means you got a weak flapper.
Weak flapper, and you got to take it out. So they only cost like $3, right? So, get the flapper, put it in. And as soon as I put the flapper in, the arm that holds the flapper in place that you actually is attached to the lever. So the whole thing that operates the mechanism to pull the flapper up breaks a little bit. But at this point, I just fixed the toilet and I was feeling too good to give a shit. And I was like, it's still going to work. It's clearly this armature is old, but whatever. The flapper's repaired. It'll be fine. Next day I come home, Diana's like, hey, I flushed the toilet upstairs and broke the arm off of it. I'm like, okay. So order an arm, get that, put that all together. And the only sort of major misgiving of it was the fact that apparently it's the same sort of diversity and uniformity problem where I didn't realize the specificity with which you need to approach getting parts for your toilet.
Yeah.
Right? Like you got to
We haven't come to a standard on toilet.
Well,
arms.
there are some standards. That's the confusing part. Is there's just a set of standards, but if you're not an expert in toilets,
Yeah.
then
Well, it
how
reminds
would
me
you
of the
know?
XKCD comic of somebody who's like, I'm sick of all these different languages not using the same standard.
Yeah.
I'm going to come up with my own language that uses a different standard.
Yeah. So if you flip over the lid, you have to read the serial number on the bottom of the lid of the water tank and then go and plug that in and be like arm for K17298. And then there's a couple different options. And the thing was with my toilet in particular is that it actually has a diagonal arm.
Whoa.
Which apparently if you accidentally order this thing, it just will not work because it won't fit into the toilet if you accidentally order it for the wrong toilet.
Mhm.
And there were tons of comments and questions of people trying to get some reassurance that they were ordering the right toilet arm. And I was like, this is too much. Can't we just
So
get on the
somebody,
internet
so
and
somebody
get the
goes
right
to the
damn
question saying, like, can I shit in it? And somebody's like, no, this is the
This is
toilet
the
arms.
arms.
You got to get over to the
Cut it
toilet
out.
section.
Uh,
Good old toilet stories.
Yeah.
Let's get to some questions.
All right. So questions come from podcast.bscotch.net. You can ask them with or without a Bscotch ID.
Yeah, we don't care.
I don't care.
do what you
Just
want.
ask them.
And go on there, ask a question or two about, game stuff, life stuff, whatever you want. And we'll answer it on the podcast maybe. So first question comes from Ogas Who's, who asks, what do you think of Game Maker 2, which is in beta? And are you guys and girl going to use it?
I don't know if we can talk too much about it.
The trailer
Are we
came out.
under NDA?
Well, the thing is, there's an NDA for what is in the closed beta.
Oh, because we're in the closed beta.
Yeah, and I can't remember what
Where the
parts of
line
it
is.
that they
Are we
didn't-
allowed to say that we're in the closed beta?
Sure, why not?
But I mean, what if that was also in there?
I'll read it and see.
NDA inception.
I think long form or short form, it looks very good.
Yeah, it looks super nice. I think it's going to be really useful. There's a lot of nice new features in it. We will be using Game Maker Studio 2. Probably not for our immediate next game, but for the following one. Because it's also the case that we've developed a whole bunch of tools for Game Maker that now we will have to retool them to get them to work in the new Game Maker. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be a thing. And I assume we have to migrate all of our projects over to it.
It's gonna be a little. No, I think you meant sure is gonna have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for.
as the shepherd of the portfolio.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it's there is a video out, a YouTube video.
Yeah.
That's just like showing off some of the features and stuff, and
It is
Looks
very
cool.
cool.
yeah.
The active art while you're animating thing is really weird. So you can you look at the example they have in the videos. There's a sword, and they want to put flames on it because why not? And they just set out the frames for it, and then actually draw on the sprite while the animation is going. And so it's putting down
Yeah. Honestly, I
imagery while it's
think
going, which is gonna be weird.
for pixel art
Yeah, it's gonna be great.
games, Game Maker 2 is going to just blow everything out of the water
Mhm.
because it
Yeah.
also has its sprite editing tool has layers like Photoshop, so you can edit and delete layers. And when you're done, it'll compile everything at runtime for the game, but it becomes a PNG when it's done. But inside the project, it's still layered, so you can edit the layers at any time, delete layers at any time. You can make variants of the sprite, and you can, like you're saying, you can run an animation and draw on it
as it's
while
animated.
it's running.
It's a little mind bending. I would recommend looking
And
at
at first I heard about that and I was like, that's weirdly, how
Specific.
could that possibly be useful?
And then you see him draw fire with it in like 5 seconds. You're like, oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Cause it's just a matter of like, put your like pencil on the thing and just like make a little red squiggle that goes up. And then all of a sudden you have fire.
Boom.
Yeah.
Technology, yeah.
Super cool.
All right, next question comes from Map5597, who asks, from what I remember, you guys mostly self-taught yourself programming. Do you think if you took a class on real programming, it would expose some things you were doing that weren't quite right? Would you recommend a data structure or algorithms course?
I love the idea of real programming.
Yeah. I think, in retrospect, I hate the idea of a programming course because it's just throwing a bunch of crap at you in what I would now consider to be an arbitrary order where
I think you just described all of education.
yeah, but where so self-teaching is amazing because you are doing it to solve problems.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you learn something, you learn it with a purpose in mind and you get to use it right there on the spot. And you can take the time that you need in order to dig deeper into it and figure out why it's working. Right. If you're taking a programming course, somebody else is going to come in and tell you something that you need to know, even if it's not actually relevant to the thing you're trying to do. You're not going to use it in a useful context. And then it'll just kind of slip away after a while, right? Yeah. The other thing is like you can get an F, like you can fail a programming course. But the idea behind self-teaching is it's not about like
Failure is how you learn.
yeah. Well, that's exactly it. Is you have to screw things up constantly in order to be like, oh, I broke that and it didn't work, and this is why. And now next time I can make it better. But having that pressure where like you have to make a thing that fits whatever the assignment is to learn a particular concept that somebody else decided you needed to know, and that now your inability to do that is now like perpetually documented and reflected on a piece of paper for some fucking reason. It's just not something that happens with self-teaching. Right.
Yeah.
Like if you screw something up, you're like, that was an important lesson. I'm not going to do that again.
Right.
And you just get to move on.
Well,
So-
speaking of this, we are teaching a class.
Yeah. But it's actually not, it's weird because it's not a programming class.
Yeah.
It is a game development class. And that shit's going to run the gamut.
Is it a game programming class?
Technically, the title is video game programming.
But
we
that's
didn't
so-
get to choose it.
Yeah. That's only because can we say why?
Probably not. Probably should. We'll just say legacy technology.
We'll just say legacy code.
To be announced.
Yeah. So the title of the course literally cannot be changed, and it's not in our control. So it's called video game programming, but it's actually just a course about game development in general. And so the students will be solo developing games, and we're gonna put them through.
So they're doing a semester-long Ludum Dare.
Yeah, they'll make several games throughout the semester.
Okay.
Nice. But yeah, it's gonna be intense. We'll probably have some really good stories about that in
Sure,
the spring.
that's true.
Yeah. I was going to add, so a good teacher teaches the students how to approach the problem, how to solve problems in general, not to just any specific problems, but to that domains of problems. So yeah, so if you are taking a class and you're failing in it because you can't solve specific problems, it doesn't mean you're bad at the thing. The problem context can change from one to another in vastly different ways. And then the good thing with self-teaching is that you solve the problem that's specific to yourself. And then in that process, you look things up, and then those things benefit yourself.
Right.
In that specific context. So I guess my point is just that, there's no one size fits all class for everybody. It's you yourself got to identify what problem you want to solve and then go ahead and find the information relevant to that.
Yeah. Which isn't to say that taking a programming class
It's bad.
is bad. I think if you take a programming course and expect that just through that, you're going to become a good programmer, I think that's probably not.
That's just a general rule for taking classes, though, I think.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, there's no replacement for just working
Doing
your ass
stuff.
off.
Well, actually, as we were, Sam and I were talking through kind of how to approach the agenda, like the what is it? What's it called? Syllabus.
Syllabus.
This is our agenda.
That word for what a class is.
We'd be great teachers.
Yeah. Hey kids, get out your whatever that piece of paper is. We were kind of struggling with the idea that actually like the structure of a college course or any normal school course is that it has absolutely nothing to do with teaching people in-depth knowledge about something. It's you get hit with a whole bunch of different courses because the limitation is you have 3 hours of class and you should not give people more than seven hours of work that week, right? I'm thinking like if you spend 10 hours a week on anything,
that was a rule you had for this class.
It's a rule of thumb, right? Because it's like, okay, if somebody's taking, so what is it?
Most people take 15 credit hours, right? So you basically just multiply that by 5, whatever we tell them to do. So it's 7 or 8 times 5, which is a 40-hour full work week, right?
Yeah,
right. But yeah, so the idea is it's weird to think about it in retrospect, but that it's not about actually learning a lot about something. It's learning some stuff about a lot of different things. And even if you're majoring in a thing, you're taking a couple classes in a thing, you're spending 15 to 20 hours a week working on that thing, and you do that for 2-4 month stretches or something. Like you haven't really gone very far at all down that path, actually. So it's kind of a weird thing to think about is like, we're going to teach a course where we want to try to teach people a lot of in-depth, really good knowledge about stuff, but we have a really limited window to do it. And we can't actually demand that they spend very much time on
Well,
it.
the interesting thing about it is if you look at a normal game jam, which is a 48-hour event and people work for about 30 hours during it. If you consider that in the context of a class, the normal amount of time you get in a class, that's basically a third or a half of a semester, depending on.
And it only is a weekend.
And it's a weekend.
Yeah.
That's crazy, right? Yeah. And they talk about there are these programs that a lot of universities offer where they do accelerated courses, right? Where you can say, all right, I'm going to do microeconomics for the next 2 weeks. And you have class for 6 hours a day. You have a test every 3 days, and you get the credit after 2 weeks, right? Because you learn the shit out of it in just 2.5 or 3 weeks.
An immersion course.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about it is like so some schools do this, right? The block schedule sort of approach where you just do one thing at a time for 2 to 4 weeks. And I do wonder if there's some really large benefit to that because you're so forcibly immersed in it. But at the same time, I remember one of my favorite things about school and taking multiple classes that span different disciplines was actually seeing all the weird ways in which everything crosstalks. That was like one of my favorite things.
I think this goes to the original question, which was about the value of taking a course about sort of the nitty-gritty details of real, quote unquote, real programming, right? I think that has a really important place, or at least trying to understand what real programmers would consider to be real programming has an important place in things like data structures, as mentioned. But only when you, as the person trying to learn, are already equipped with what you need to understand and utilize that. Because programming, like all kinds of stuff, has developed so much in recent years that you can know very little actually about how to think about problems, about how you don't need to really know any math. You don't need to know how a computer works. And you can pick up Python or just about any other modern language and you can just start programming. You don't have to know anything. And as you do it, and
or game maker,
right? And as you do it and start solving problems and understanding kind of the beauty of what it means to use programming to solve a problem, then you become more and more equipped with just an internalized understanding of what you're doing, so that when you are then presented with, oh, by the way, this is actually how this works. This is what the detail is. This is what algorithm is running in the background when you do this. Because once you start running into the limitations of your knowledge so that you can no longer solve the problems you're trying to solve, now when you go out to look for the answers, sometimes the answers are now in that more complicated stuff.
You're going to bump into those things.
You're going to bump into them just by being a programmer, just by working. And as long as you don't run away from them when you meet them, instead try to figure them out, then every time you're confronted with them, you're going to do a better job of understanding it. So that the way that most of this stuff is taught, including programming and including a lot of science, is just ass backwards, right? They just say, here are all the details first. We want to make sure you know all the details so you understand what you're doing. Right?
I remember when I took comp sci my freshman year of college, which I failed. The first 2 weeks was on memory pointers.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know what the fuck any of this is.
Memory?
What is memory?
And
what's
like pointers are notoriously the most confusing thing.
Yeah,
for
and
new
that was what
programmers
we
to understand.
started with, and then it went just downhill from there. Because like it actually took 8 weeks into the semester before we started doing any writing any actual code.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, you can't write code until you understand binary, right? Like you gotta know, the deepest level.
This is the opposite of the reality of the sort of muddy hands approach, right? Like you got to get your hands in the guts of the thing and get your hands dirty in order to actually have the context in which to understand it.
Yep.
And Shay, you've been programming now for like 4 months. Like, how's this process been? Because you've been self-teaching a lot. Seth gave you sort of some pointers, but you've been largely sort of on your own.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, I just threw
that
Sher into
process
the
been?
deep end.
Yeah. How's that process?
Pretty
been
much
for
it.
you?
Yeah, I think when you have specific problems to solve, I think you like as long in this age, you know, Stack Exchange is the best friend of programmers.
But if you just copy paste and don't know what's happening,
Then you're
made a
in
mistake.
rough spot.
Right. Yeah, this
Should start sweating.
yeah. That's what I've been doing. Oh my God. My secrets have been found out.
I've never written a single line of code.
Right. But yeah, I think is what I meant is just that, you know, answers are out there. Like, all the problems that you think you are coming up seeing for the first time was being solved like probably 100 times online.
Yeah, starting 30 years ago.
Starting 30 years ago. So, you know, if you want to, you know, if you just what I've been finding out is that, you know, as you encounter this problem, you are narrowing it down. Big problems, you know, you have to narrow it down to see, oh, okay, what small problems you can solve first. And when you really narrow down the search, then you can pinpoint where, you know, what exactly you're looking for. And sometimes, you know, you can get that answer from online. Sometimes I get that from Seth. Sometimes, you know, you come across the documentations of GameMaker and just find those stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So what's really important is just this kind of problem solving mind, you know, that helps you to break big, nebulous, ambiguous things down into concrete small blocks that you can actually work on. And then from there, you know, you can then build up the big things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess as sort of parting advice for people trying to learn program, there is no right way to program.
There's no such thing as a real programmer.
There's no such thing as a real programmer. What if you want to actually be a programmer and use it to solve problems, then as Sher is basically saying, all you need to do is just always care about how things work and be okay with the fact that you're not going to know, or that you're not going to understand how it works a lot of the time, but keep revisiting stuff. Because I even find today that suddenly I'll be using something that I've used 100 times or 1,000 times over the past year or two. And then all of a sudden something will click and I'll realize, holy shit, that's what this is doing. Right. And now it suddenly makes sense. And a lot of those low level details are the sort of realm of things like algorithms courses and data structures, because that's all the nitty gritty details of what a thing is actually doing kind of behind the scenes. Because again, sometimes that's important, but as a new programmer, it's never important.
Right. You just got to get
Which
shit
sounds,
working.
which sounds like an extreme thing to say, but I think it just
I
really
agree.
is the case. You just don't need to know that stuff to start using programming, start embracing it. And by teaching programming with the assumption that you have to know that stuff in order to do
You're
it,
doing everybody a disservice.
you're doing everybody a
Well,
disservice.
actually, because of that class, I stepped away from believing that I could even learn how to code.
Yeah.
I walked away from that for 5 years.
Yep.
It was the same thing with me. My freshman year, I took a comp sci course. I didn't fail it, but I did not know what was happening at all the entire time because we were so in the weeds with everything. And I didn't care because it wasn't about.
Why would you?
It wasn't about causing explosions and stuff. One of the assignments was literally like, here's how recursion works. Do recursion in this way. I'm like, I don't understand
It's
what
not in the
recursion even
service
is.
of some larger
Yeah,
thing.
I don't understand why I would do this. And then we ended up making, the goal was to make like a Persian rug looking thing using recursion, an image. But at the same
A
time, I was like,
recursion rug.
a recursion rug, yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't come into that being like, I want to make a rug. I know how I can figure this out with recursion. I need to figure out what recursion is. It was the opposite way, where someone's like,
Yeah.
you need to go make a rug using recursion. I'm like, why?
Yeah, but here's even better is you wouldn't even need to know that recursion exists, because you can solve that problem without recursion. You can solve just about any problem without recursion. And then someday, after you've solved 1,000 problems in the way that's a little less efficient, you're going to read something. If you're, again, always looking for new knowledge and always trying to understand how things work, you're going to read something about recursion. And since you solved 1,000 problems that all look similar and could have been solved by recursion,
You're gonna be
now
like,
you can
shit.
oh. No, but it's not even, I guess you could do it that way. Or you could just say, oh, this is cool. Now I get how this would work. And then you can
But
go
also
use
with
it.
a slight amount of remorse about your past mistakes. I wish I had known this earlier.
I prefer to go forward looking.
No, I'm all about moping.
But yeah, just never stop asking questions and never stop reading documentation.
Never stop, never stopping. All right. Darth Binary is our next question. comes from, comes from Darth Binary. The question
Darth
is,
Binary.
are there going to be any other job switches like Carol's? If not, do any of you want to but feel blocked somehow from doing something? It's a fun one.
I don't know.
I think as far
Probably.
as job switches go, it's more about like where everyone's sort of finding exactly where they can slot their talent to perform best, both for the studio and then also just to sort of line up with themselves. We're pretty open to moving people around to do that. So that's where we're at. That being said, we do have various projects that we need done as a studio. So it's not like if Seth is like, I want to take care of birds.
We'll be like, that doesn't really.
I can't quite help you there, Seth.
I'm all about knitting. Can we start up a knitting division that's just me making fuckloads of mittens?
Yeah. I think the only thing
Bleeding all over everything with my calloused hands.
I mean, I'll speak for myself personally. I don't feel blocked about doing anything. It's mainly just that there's so many projects that we have that are interesting and exciting to do that it could be easy. We talked about this a bit today. It can be easy to essentially try to do too many of them simultaneously while being very pumped up about all of them and ending up kind of
Doing none of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just making less meaningful progress on a day-to-day than frankly is satisfactory for a job.
Yeah, I think the realistic thing about owning and running a game studio in our case is that you don't get to just do a thing. You have to do 1,000 things all the time. And for people we're bringing into the company, though, we can give them the freedom of only having to do one thing, actually, which we're going to start working towards doing because that's actually when you can buckle down and do the most work. And I mean, over time, as the studio's needs change, we might shift people over to other tasks as they're necessary. But yeah, I don't know. No real job switches, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we as we're new employers. Like we've
baby employer, getting our baby legs.
Yeah. So of course, we're learning all kinds of things as we go and figuring out how to make people fulfilled being a part of the team and getting people motivated to work on cool stuff and all that. So what I'm curious about with this question is that we don't really know what the hell we're doing in this domain. And so we have some ideas about it, but we're gonna be making some mistakes here and there.
Oh yeah,
when it comes to managing this group. So we'll I don't know.
Who knows?
But we'll try to keep everybody up to date so you can kind of get the inner workings of a game dev studio.
Yeah, but that is
operating.
Yeah, but that is an important point that Adam was getting at, which is over the past couple weeks, we've started to realize more and more the importance of trying to give people the gift of focus, which is it's hard to be productive and feel like you're making meaningful progress towards stuff if you're being pulled in 1,000 different directions, right? And so it's something that we want to try to put more focus on, is giving people that opportunity to just work on a single project and go really hard on it for a while. And that as the people who are running the studio, it's our responsibility to try to facilitate that and make that happen. Because we've been doing 1,000 things at a time for years now, and that's where we live, right?
Yeah, we live in that space.
And
which is to say that, this is an important point, because when we did our hiring, we actually had the opposite idea. We were like, we're going to bring in people to do all the 1,000 things that we're doing so that we can focus on the one thing that we each want to do. And it turns out that doesn't make any damn sense. Yeah. Because we're the ones who know about all the thousands of things that have to be done, because we built this thing and we have a vision for it. And it doesn't make sense to put that responsibility on somebody else.
So why would you be like, hey, here's 1,000 things to do, and you've never seen any of them before.
Yeah,
so
or even know why you would do them.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
I'm going to go over here and just work on a thing.
That's an important lesson.
Yeah. We are learning. We're learning, slowly but surely. But I do wonder, we're talking about how to learn stuff, because there are MBA courses, right? There are management courses.
Yeah, I took one.
You did take one.
I mean, I went to MBA school.
Did it teach you anything about this? Because that's my question is like,
no.
And so I'm starting to understand, when
everyone's flailing in the dark.
Actually, when I came out of college, though, I was like, oh, how come they make you have to have work experience before you get an MBA, right? They require that you have some work experience.
Because they don't actually teach you anything. You teach yourself.
Yes.
By getting a job.
Then they just put a stamp on it.
Yeah.
They're like, okay.
Well, no, first you give them $100,000.
Yeah.
And then they put a stamp.
Well, my point though is that it's that learning without context again is essentially not being able to learn anything. It's the equivalent of just sitting in a room and having someone teach at you.
Yeah, you need context.
You need context, and you get the context in that case by actually working for a few years before you get an MBA. But I was wondering, in your case, having gone to an MBA course, which I totally forgot about, done some MBA stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read plenty of books. there's some very good books on on
All the
management
best books.
and on business structure and how best to work with people and all this other stuff. And honestly, I don't think any of it has like really stuck because of the fact that we weren't in the context in which I needed to use it. Right?
Yeah.
Until
Yeah.
recently.
And I mean, even now, with context, it's like anything.
Our context is different.
Our context is different, and a lot of people don't like. They may have misevaluated things,
Mhm.
right? And so you can go out there and do a lot of reading and try to figure out whether you're doing the right thing, whether you have the right ideas. But you just have to be very self-critical and
then just do it.
Yeah, introspect a lot on whether or not you're doing things the right way, and try to brainstorm on better ways to be doing things, and just do your best.
Mhm.
So yeah.
And I want to add is that, let's think about why we have school or class in the first place. Back in the old days, people do that to just simply discuss ideas together and just talk shops. And
Like
then
salons from back in the day.
yeah. So a lot of people that I know are in the MBA class. They talk about, it's a great networking opportunity. It's a great
Right.
place, for me to get to know other people who are business leaders or in management, and then we talk about the problems we're facing. We talk shops. We trade ideas with each other. And I think in that kind of a context, after I think just if you have been bending yourself, bending your head on the table on certain problems, and you can't figure it out on your own, it's a good idea to just to talk to other people and see what their perspectives is, and sometimes you can get ideas from them. And then having a class, to do that like on a regular basis, have that kind of like commitment can sometimes be helpful.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like, I guess it's sort of like just paying for a chronic consultancy.
Yeah.
Chronic consultancy.
So I mean, I did go to an MBA school, so I can speak to this a bit, but it was basically a networking.
It was more
thing.
about the networking than it was the management, right?
It was about learning how to land a good job. How to interview. There was regular interview practice. You would have to interview into a webcam regularly, and you would send your interviews in to an evaluator who because they want to make sure that anybody coming out of that school will just land the first big management job that they want to get.
Which is less about managing and more about
it's
your
more about
webcam
politics.
practice.
It's about politics. It's about how to present yourself, how to speak business jargon. How do you work a crowd and like go into a room and just
Command
hit it?
it.
Yeah, like find the person who you want to network with and go what was it?
Go do that.
Go do finger guns at him. Hey, buddy. Yeah. We need to talk shop. Yeah. So I was weirded out because I went there with the intention. This was back in 2011. And I was like, I had been making games for a year on my own at this point. And I thought I need to do this because I need to know what goes into running a business. So I need an MBA because I want to start a game studio at some point and I need to know it. So I go in there and in the first quarter, I'm like, holy shit, this has absolutely nothing to do with running a business or being a manager. At no point in any of the classes was the word like employees used. Like that was never a concept. Like it was all just about like, how do you interview? How do you do this? How do you do that? Let's talk about statistics. Let's talk about, how to like manage your whatever. I don't know. It's like, it was nothing to do with any of the stuff that we're actually doing now. So I don't know. It's, which isn't to say that it's not useful. It's just not
Useful for
I
what you
need.
think it is.
It's not
Right.
what I needed at the
Right.
time.
It's not a golden ticket. It's another, silver bullet.
Yep. You still got to do stuff, turns out.
Our next question comes from Kevin888, who asks, I was watching those deleted scenes from the Dev Diary on YouTube, which, by the way, there are some deleted scenes from Dev Diary on YouTube.
What's the Dev Diary, Sam?
The Dev Diary is the story of Crashlands development.
Oh,
That's a
pretty cool.
behind the scenes documentary. There's some of them on the YouTubes. So Dev Diary, Butterscotch, or Dev Diary Crashlands. I can't remember the two.
Yeah.
But one of the things mentioned in there was the ghost in Dad's house. And he said, what's this all about? What's this ghost in the house all about? Did you
Tell
guys,
us a ghost story.
Did you guys ever run into the thing?
No.
Nah, man. Nah, I never saw a ghost.
All right. So apparently I was the only one who had these.
Using ghosts.
I'm not worrying about your nonsense, Adam. I'm gonna tell a ghost
My
story.
nonsense?
Yeah, I'm telling you, I'm calling your nonsense. Calling it nonsense. So the ghost story is thus. Let's start with the facts. Young, preteen, hormones raging, and brains changing very fast.
11-year-old Sam.
Somewhere between 11 and 13 is when
Picture
most of it's
this.
happening. And we're in our dad's house, which is this old house built in like 1904 or something.
It's
It's very old.
Before the Titanic sank.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think.
And
Before airplanes existed.
and when dad bought it, it was just a piece of shit. Like you could see through the kitchen floor into the basement where there was still a coal pile.
yeah,
When they used to
the
dump coal.
kitchen floor was literally just
I kid you
wood
not.
slats.
So he was fixing this thing up, good on him for taking care of the neighborhood, whatever. Anyway, so the big problem was, aside from all the work that needed to be done,
Was the ghosts.
was that there was a fucking ghost living in it. And so what happened to me, and dad at the time would just kept on telling me that I was freaking out, like watching too many scary movies, which is probably true because I was preteen, didn't know what I was doing. But what would happen is I would go to bed, and my room was right across sort of an eye line level. If you're laying down in bed and you look out, like you look to your right,
You'd see the attic door.
you could see, well, you look through your door, and then there's the attic door sort of perpendicular, I guess, to your, parallel to your view. So it'd be like on the edge. So you kind of just see the edge of the door sitting there. And some nights, for some reason, I would just hear some shit clattering around up in the attic. And the crazy thing was that the attic didn't have anything in it. It wasn't a finished attic. There was no storage up there. It was just sort of like
just empty.
an empty, dusty, gross place, and we never went there.
We don't go to the attic.
And so, of course, all these things. For some people, it's the basement, right? Everybody has a place in their house usually that's like, it's kind of scary. Don't go in there. And Seth managed to avoid this, I think, by having an office downstairs. So every space is used.
Yep.
There's life
threw
everywhere.
a bunch of humans down here.
Yeah, but in our case, the attic at Dad's place was terrifying. Also, the basement was terrifying to start with. But
It was partially the coal pile.
yeah, the coal pile is very scary. And it's so scary.
Don't touch it. I don't know. Is it poisonous?
It might catch fire.
over the course of about 2 years, basically, very routinely, I would hear something walking around upstairs. I swear to God, just something walking around.
Someone.
A
ghost.
And regular sort of clomping stuff, not raccoon-sized things. I know what raccoons look like. I know their size
It's
is
like
not
your
raccoon.
shoes.
Yeah, these are like shoes or something.
What if it was a raccoon wearing shoes?
That would be incredible. And so I would wake up Dad and I'd say, hey, there's, I'm sorry to bother you, but
There's a
There's a ghost upstairs. And Dad would be like, no, quit freaking out, go back to bed. And just, send me off. And then I'd just leave the light on the hallway. That was sort of my response.
Because as we all know, ghosts
Terrifying.
they're like vampires. Any illumination whatsoever just throws them off.
So all of this, though, came to a head one day where I think it was shortly after the attic was cleaned out or something. They'd like move some stuff around.
there
in
was
the
some
attic.
turbulence up there.
There's some turbulence up there, and they found one thing of interest, which was that there was a bunch of burn marks inside the roof of the attic, as if at some point the place had been on fire. Spooky, very spooky. And
or somebody brought some coal from downstairs and rubbed it on the floor upstairs.
who knows what happened? But anyway, so
it
I
was
think
a
they just
fireman
started
ghost.
moving, like cleaned out the attic or something. And a fireman goes up there, rampaging around. And so this was the final time I ever had any issues with this. I heard them walking around. I'm like, okay, whatever, ghosts. That was this. Shut the fuck up. I'm trying to go to bed. Which is funny that like these things become just a kind of a nuisance, like a squirrel, at this point. So
Ghosts keep
you paranormal piece of shit, go away. So
trying to sleep.
laying
I
there
got
in
a
bed
test tomorrow.
laying there in bed, trying to sleep, and hear it walking around, and then it starts coming down the stairs. So it's like clomp, 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 and there's like these very, very narrow steps, and so it's like it's just coming down one by one. And then the door. So I'm looking at the fucking door, and I'm just like, oh no, it's like this is the night. This is it.
The ghost is gonna get me. Although I will point out that your bedroom was not the closest one
No,
to
yours
the attic.
was-
Mine was. So it would have I would have been ghost food or whatever happens to
as
people
soon, if
when
they lock
ghosts-
eyes with you, you're done. That's how it works.
Then they trade souls with you.
Yeah.
And now you're the ghost.
so it's like clop, 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 and it's just coming down these fucking steps. And I'm watching this door. I'm like, no, and just sort of wide-eyed with terror as a 13-year-old. And then finally hits the bottom step, and I'm just sitting there waiting, like watching the door, waiting for the horror movie doorknob or the creak. Yeah, nothing happens. So this is it.
That's kind of like when you light like a firework and the fuse goes all the way in and then it just sits there.
Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like. And I'm like, oh.
Just sweating.
Yeah. So I wait a few minutes because I don't want to like trigger something, by walking out into the hallway.
Ghosts get very upset by just movement.
so I wait a little while and then I get up and I'm pretty sure I was like, Dad, scoot over. Like, fuck you, I'm sleeping in here. She's like, get in bed. And so just sleep there, and then didn't have any problems with it the rest of the time. And they ended up redoing the attic. And I think Dad and Kevin's theory was that after they redid the attic, that the ghost was pleased. This is their theory. And it's because pleased with the arrangement of the furniture or whatever the fuck.
So
it
walked down the stairs and then, but where did it? Like it just is standing on the step to this day.
I don't know, man.
I mean, yeah, we're
Did you ever feel cold when you walk
that
up the
first
stairs
step?
on the first step?
It got trapped.
it's still standing there to this day. But Dad experienced the ghost.
Yeah, so did Kevin.
Yeah, and each time they were sleeping in that same bedroom.
Also, other people who visited the house who didn't know about it have had freaky shit happen. So it's not just me. I know, Adam, you're looking at me. It's not just me. And the weird thing is, like, if you ask me if I believe in ghosts, I'd be like, no. And then you're like,
But
tell me the ghosts are
except
about-
for the
oh,
one.
except for the one that walked
I don't
around.
believe you don't believe in ghosts.
I believe in
Plural,
ghost
just the one that lives in the attic.
that is currently standing on the bottom step.
Yeah,
It's trapped forever. Very sad.
it's waiting for its moment to fuck. I don't know.
To walk back. up
Maybe
the stairs.
maybe it's waiting for the attic to get burned down again so that it can go
So it
back
can
up there.
reemerge.
It only lives in burned attics.
All right, final question comes from Darth Binary, who says, Pop183, another B-Scotch person. They must be B-Scotch ID friends.
Hey,
Cool. Pop183 and I recently found the Skyrim reference in Talfight 2. I won't spoil where. And had a good laugh about it. What are your favorite references in your games? I'm going to open this up to just any game because of the fact that we probably don't remember even what we referenced in a lot of stuff. But is there anything you got?
yeah. Favorite references?
Yeah. We don't tend to make a lot of references in our games.
Or Easter eggs, right?
Easter
we
eggs.
do make a lot of references.
Internal references, right?
Well, I mean, they're still about real things though. They're just so screwed up. It's sort of like you photocopied 1,000 times in a row, and then maybe put it through a paper shredder and then
And then
randomly
rub it on-
tape it back together.
Rub it on the coal in the basement.
Yeah,
You know,
and then
fuck it up.
feed it to the step goes.
Yeah.
and then that's the thing that ends up in the game.
Yeah.
So it can be kind of hard to decipher.
Well,
What
so a good example of this is
intent
in
was.
Talfight, we have the I Heart TF2 shirt, which refills one of your hearts when you use it.
Mhm.
And everybody thought that it was a Team Fortress 2 reference.
yeah.
And we're like,
No,
no, it's
no,
literally
it's
this
how
game.
we'll fight.
It's how
This
we'll fight
game
that you're
too.
playing.
So there's that.
People.
What are the other? I don't even know what are the references.
Yeah, there's in Crashland, I think there was a mission that's called Fungus Among Us.
Fungus Among Us.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Fungus Among Us. And then I think I recently started playing WoW again. And then I think there was a daily quest for the undead in the Undercity where you go collect fungus. And then the quest name is exactly the same. It's Fungus,
It's
fungus
a good
Among
pun.
Us.
It's a good pun. I mean,
Right.
come on.
Yeah, I'm just drawing a blank. I generally don't really care about references
Mhm.
because they feel like usually they're just like a cheap way to sort of like point at a thing and be like, look, hey, you know this thing, I know this thing, we have established human connection, right?
Well, we sort of pull on them and then twist them, I guess. So the Indiana Jones example.
Oh
the
yeah,
Crashlands.
that was a good one.
So the whole
It's
there's a fight.
obscure.
Yeah, there's a boss fight that involves Blockstock, who's this big rocky golem guy. And the way you get to him is by helping out these two adventurers, one named Andiana and one named Johns.
Yeah.
And so together,
And most people don't get
Yeah.
it because you have to kind of read them together.
Mhm.
You know?
and they always stand in order though.
Yeah.
You know, so their names are always if you want.
Although I will backtrack on my reference statement because I always like a good Indiana Jones reference. Because there's also, in speaking of WoW, there's a character named Harrison Jones, and it's like he's Harrison Ford, yeah,
Right.
and he's this explorer, and they first started out like there was a troll dungeon thing. And he's like leading an expedition to go in there and do stuff. And he opens the gate and then it's like, oh fuck, there's all these bloodthirsty trolls in there. And that's part of the intro to the dungeon. And so you have to go in there and sort of like keep the world from being overrun by this army of trolls that Harrison Jones opened up. And then they took it to the next level in a future expansion. They actually added a bunch of cutscenes where he's like, you have to, it's like Harrison Jones is like, he's got a little rope thing and he's like whipping stuff and like swinging on it, just like they did in that horrible Crystal Skull movie. And you have to like, you get this little rope thing and you have to like rope behind him and like swing around in these ruins and like dig down and find shit. So, I mean, yeah, they literally took like an Indiana Jones character and just made him part of the lore, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I think references are, if they're done in a kind of a just not a deep way necessarily. That was pretty deep, but in a way that's just a little bit more than just, hey, here's a reference. Like, isn't that amusing, right? But when it's done just with a little bit more depth, so that it feels like it makes sense. Also,
it has to mean something.
Yeah. And so that because I think I would actually disagree in general that it's. I mean, I think they can be used cheaply for sure, but I don't think it's necessarily cheap because actually just saying to somebody, hey, you know that thing that you care about? I like that thing too. You know, that's the cornerstone of all human interaction. Right. And by seeding references, but not too apparent ones, because like if they're a little bit more subtle, then if a person really cares about it, they're more likely to see it, right? And so by kind of seeding a huge diversity of those things in a game, then you get to connect with people in a more and just in a deeper way. You get to remind them that, hey, somebody made this thing, and they like the stuff that you like.
The interesting thing about that though is that there are plenty of references that people get in our games that we didn't put in our games.
Yeah, exactly. That's the beauty of it.
What I mean by that is like people draw inferences between things that we have no idea what they're talking about. And the easiest example that we talked about before is Hugo's, the boss's name originally was Q, which apparently is like the Star Trek villain.
Or a Star Trek villain.
Yeah. And we didn't have any idea about this. It was just someone was like, oh, you got that, it's cool. You got that from Star Trek. It might be a little too obvious. And we're like, what do we get from Star Trek? So, and not even that, but they're like the boss, the Jessica boss, which is a great boss fight, by the way. I'm not going to spoil how you get there and the whole situation. But everyone started asking. There are people. We got messages from people being like, who is this in reference to? Like, is this someone's, sort of past lover that you're turning into a boss?
Do you guys know someone named Jessica?
Is this a joke about like a particular? There's some movie someone suggested where there's like a villain named Jessica, like all these things. And we're like, no, we just literally randomly named it Jessica. I appreciate that you're tying these things together, but maybe we should be a little more purposeful.
Yeah, the whole point of the name of that boss was like, what would be like the furthest possible name from what this boss actually is?
Yeah,
we're basically saying Jessica's a great name.
It's a great name. Yeah. It's nice. It sounds pleasant. Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody seeing a reference that we didn't intend. Because frankly, there's no difference between one we intended and one we didn't. Because
they still
all that matters is the other person's connection to that thing, right? And so a person playing a game or absorbing some piece of media is constantly on the lookout for things that they're familiar with. And so people are good pattern recognition machines. They're going to find stuff that they're going to connect with because they think it's related to that. And if the game itself really clearly has so many things that seem to be references to things, if you don't know what it's talking about, but also is done in such a way that you don't feel left out for not knowing because it's so weirdly done that you can kind of breeze right over it, then you just you get a sense that they're everywhere. And so then of course you're just going to start seeing them, right? And then I actually think it's great because then people are kind of looking for them, and now it becomes kind of the fun part of the puzzle of playing the game and identifying with the people who made it.
There is one reference, now I think about it, in Tile Fight that was a good one, I think. It was super obscure, which was before we launched Tile Fight, we were like, we should go to the Touch Arcade forums and just chat with the folks there, right? And it was the night before launch. And so we were there, we're just talking to people, and we're just like, we're just like prepping it because it's our first game that we've launched and we don't know what the fuck we're doing, but thanks for being supportive, And so we're just answering questions about the game. And that same night Sam was making chili. And so we put a picture of Sam like stirring the chili violently, like with his eyes bulging out. And then we just put that picture in the thread. We're just like, oh yeah, we're just making some launch chili, to get ready. And then we just kind of forgot about it. And then then a few weeks later, we started working on the first content patch for Tile Fight, and the only content patch. We shouldn't have even done that one, but we added Tim the Magician, who gives you little spells that last it's like 5-minute buff. And one of the spells that you can find is launch chili as like a thing. And it just makes you shoot faster or set things on fire or something. I don't know. But yeah, so we put launch chili in the game, and there must have been like 15 people in the whole world who knew what that was.
But I mean, I think to me, those are important when you're trying to build a community around a thing that you're making and around sort of a universe that you're building.
It's like an inside joke.
Yeah, it's an
kind of a
inside
thing.
joke, and those have to be done with care because you don't want to make other people feel left out, right? So
It has to stand on its own.
exactly.
If you don't know the
The
joke.
trick is
Yeah.
exactly that. The thing has to be amusing already, or you make a product that's so weird anyway, which is all of our games, that if you don't understand something, you're just like, it's just the weird.
That's
game,
just another weird thing.
so both of those can work, so that when a person sees it, they don't feel like they're left out. And then for those few, really hardcore fans of the stuff that you make, then again, it's now another personal connection. We're like, oh, I know about this thing, and then you can get excited about the fact that we then as a creators, that's for you. That's for the person who's really paying attention to what we're doing, so that they can go get what we're talking.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
True.
Cool.
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 All right. Well, I think we're out of time. So let's wrap this donkey up.
Go to podcast.bscotch.net, vote on stuff, ask questions, subscribe on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and whatever else you get
And
podcasts.
play Bet Day the Yeti at bscotch.itch.io.
Yeah.
Give us some thumbs.
Yeah.
Some
Give
thumbs.
us some thumbs.
We ended on a real clear note.
Okay. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.